Hello, this is Matt of Audio Workstations, and welcome to Tips and Tricks number 1. I'm coming to you from my home studio today, so there's a bit of background noise, but we're going to talk about mixing stuff. This is stuff you can do from anywhere. You don't have to be in the studio to apply this. So we are going to open Pro Tools, and we're going to talk about send and return versus slapping an effect right on your insert. So we are going to check out what I have so far, which is just one vocal track. I'm not going to bother listening to the audio because it's all about what we're doing here with the mouse. So we've got a vocal track. Now, what I see people do, usually when they're new at mixing, is they will desire reverb on an instrument and they will use the insert and they will pull up a reverb and then they will dial in some sort of dry wet setting. Because if you pull this up at 100% on an insert, it's going to sound like a crazy amount of reverb and no dry. So they'll dial back and, 10, 25, 30% reverb, and they say, okay, that's a good amount of reverb. Now that works, but it's not the most beneficial way to get the most out of your reverb as a mix engineer. So we're going to do it the old school way in the computer. And when I say old school, I mean it emulates the analog workflow and it provides for more opportunity to control your sound. So there's at least 3 benefits that I can think of the way we're about to do versus the way that I just showed you. So we'll call that the not so great way, and we're going to do the better way now. So I'm going to take my vocal track and I'm going to go to the send section. Click on send A, and I can go directly in Pro Tools to new track. Now this used to take longer. You used to have to go to the track menu and create the track first, but now you can do it right from the send. So we're going to create a stereo auxiliary track, time-based samples, that's fine, and we're going to say it's called Reverb. And if you like yelling, you can name it in all caps like I just did. So now I've got an empty track called Reverb. It does not have reverb on it yet. It's not really a reverb yet. But my intention is to make it a reverb return track for all of my sends. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the inserts now on the new track, on the auxiliary track. And the very first insert on my auxiliary track is going to be that same reverb. And this time I do want to leave it all the way up at 100% wet, or just leave it there if that's the default setting. Now, anything that comes through this track will be all reverb. There won't be any dry signal coming through it, so it'll be just the effect, just the reverberation in this case. This works for delay, chorus, anything else like that. So we're going to take now that same send that we used to create this when we said send new track. Now we're going to click on that and we can manipulate it up and down, and that's actually going to send a copy of that signal out to the destination track, which is the reverb. And we can dial that back, we can dial it up, and we can use this same single reverb return for every other track in our session. So if I had a new track, let's say this was a guitar or something, I'm just going to reorder it and I'm going to name it GTR for guitar. We'll pretend there's a guitar on there. And then I'm going to click in the same spot and I can either use the bus menu and then find it. I have a lot of buses named a lot of things, but in this case it's quicker just to use the track option and go right to the reverb. And now this controls the amount of reverb on guitar. It can be panned. I can say, oh, well, my guitar is panned right, but the reverb is panned left. That's something that is going to be difficult in the mistake-laden way that we went over at first. Same thing with the vocal. I can have a vocal reverb go right and the actual vocal go left. That's all creative choices. And so this same reverb can be used on every track. Now, that has 2 benefits. One is a technical benefit in that your computer is not working quite as hard, because if I want reverb on 10 instruments or 24 instruments, And, I only have one reverb running on the computer. That's a lot easier on the computer and its precious resources like the CPU and the RAM than having 10 or 24 instances of inserted reverb. Now, that's purely to save resources. However, the same setup gives you other benefits, like, for instance, all your musicians are now feeling like they're in the same room. And, you may add more than one reverb in a session eventually, but it's nice to have that similar environment on all of your musicians, especially if they weren't in real life actually recorded in the same room. They could have been recorded at different studios or in different rooms or booths at the same studio. So that can unite them. And then here's my favorite benefit, and that's actually modifying the sound of the effect in a non-effecty way, in an EQ or compression sort of a way. So, with one channel strip, I can EQ and or compress and or expand the reverb, whatever's necessary. You may not need to do any of that. You may want to do all of it. And then here's another nice thing you can do to a reverb. You can warm it up. So if I want to put some sort of tape machine or preamp emulation on top of the reverb, now it sounds like you've printed that effect to tape or run it through a console. So that's at least 3 benefits from doing your effects this way. And I think that those really add up over the course of doing a mix. And basically it's all about control. So we now have more control over the sound of the effect itself, and it's not stuck with the dry signal as it would have been on an insert. So there you go. There's probably some other benefits to doing it this way, and I'll probably think of them later. But that's at least enough of a reason to try things this way if you're used to doing it the other way, and see what kind of control that it actually gives you over your mix. And you might enjoy mixing more and get a better mix out of it. So there's tips and tricks. Number 1, setting up a proper send and return for your session. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and there will be more tips and tricks later as I think of them. Have a good one.